Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to today's Adobe Live Education Edition. My name is Ann Kozma. I'm one of the education evangelists here at Adobe, and I'm coming to you from a rainy Southern California today. But y'all, I am so excited. I have the privilege of welcoming my awesome teammate, Matt Carlson, to today's live stream. Matt is the director of user experience design, education, Fresco, and fonts at Adobe. And y'all, we're taking ideas to illustrations. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, everyone. So great to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. And Matt, I've got to pop this up on screen right away because you are the illustrator of this awesome book written by author Paige Towler. It is called Talking Rocks and Minerals, a fact-packed guide to geology. And this book is so fun and whimsical. I want to jump right in because you are all about supercharging creativity, and I love that. But I want to know a little bit about you. Can you tell us about your role at Adobe and the type of work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So I'm the director of design for, as you mentioned, for drawing and painting, which is like our big app is Fresco, which we're going to look at today, as well as education and fonts. But drawing is my first love. It's like, the first thing I ever kind of like really did is, and Fresco is my favorite app at Adobe. Don't tell all the other apps. But on that team, on the Fresco team, we're just looking at ways that we can make drawing and painting as fun, as easy, as sort of playful as possible. So every day we're looking at how can we, get more people into drawing and make drawing like easier and more fun for everyone.
I love that. And we see folks saying hi in the chat. So share a shout out. Let us know who's tuning in, where you're at. If you're watching with your students, feel free to shout out your school or your district. We definitely love to see that in the chat. But Matt, it's so cool to hear about your love of drawing and your love of creativity. And true story, Fresco is a newer Adobe app to me. And today we're digging in. So I can't wait to learn from you as we dive into this. But I want to ask a few questions as we get started, if that's
Sure.
okay. All right.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious about some of your early memories of creativity or how your love of drawing began.
Yeah, I mean, my very first memory is sitting in a high chair and my mother putting some paper and dropping a whole ton of crayons on the high chair and just me starting to color right away. So that's like the very first thing I remember. I've drawn all my life. I was one of my favorite things drawing when I was more kind of middle school was I was really into Dungeons and Dragons. So I loved drawing like fantasy characters and magical creatures, and that sort of has kept with me my whole life. And then as I started getting, drawing more and more throughout my life, that one little thread stuck with me. So when you start looking at my stuff, and I have some great things I can show you, that love of drawing really imaginary places and imaginary creatures like went through my entire life, and it's something I really tried to get my kids doing too. So we would do big family drawings where we would all sit down with like each person would have a sheet of paper. We'd draw a horizon line across it. We'd agree on a theme, like maybe it's going to be Robot City, or maybe it's going to be like, monsters in the forest or whatever. And we would all draw together as a family when my kids were really little. And we did that all the way up until even into high school a little bit. But we would each kind of start the drawing, then we would hand the page over to the next person, and they would draw on top. So we were really drawing together and building on each other's ideas. That's one of my favorite
I
things I've done recently.
love that memory. And you just inspired my weekend activities with my family. I have a 7-year-old niece, Emery, who is the most creative kid I know. She loves to draw. She loves to doodle. She loves to make things. And we do like a 3-color challenge
Oh,
in a
fun.
family where we limit ourselves to the colors, but get creative with how we use them. So the family
I
draw
love that.
along, draw and pass. You just inspired my weekend. And I want to shout out some friends. We have friends tuning in from the UK. Hey, Brands by Robin. Miss Darlene is watching from Awesome Tech, checking in from Staten Island, New York. We have our friend Michael Clear tuning in from New Jersey. Folks, it's awesome to see you here. Get your pens, papers, pencils, drawing tools ready. If you have Adobe Fresco on your device, you're ready. But I'm drawing asynchronously with one of my favorite tools today. And Matthew, this Matt, this book of yours, will you tell us a little bit more about this book? The drawings are so whimsical. And I think we're going to pull up your screen because you have
Yeah,
some great visuals to share with us too.
sure. And I'll go through these really quick, but yeah, I'd love to talk more about Talking Rock. But oh, by the way, sorry, 1 second. This is Adobe Fresco. Like we're looking at Adobe Fresco right now. So the whole day today, from the presentation that I'm sharing, as well as the drawing that we're going to do, is all going to be in Adobe Fresco.
Oh, cool.
But before we get to that, here's some of the things that I love drawing right now. These are some images that I just did for a little solo show. I love drawing magical creatures, usually in kind of out of the way places, and I really love drawing nature. So that kind of feeds into it too. But I'm always kind of tweaking nature a little bit to make it a little bit more fun and sort of quizzical. And here's a little bit of, by day, I am a design director at Adobe, but by night and very early morning, I'm an illustrator. So illustration is like my first love. Even though I'm a designer, illustration is what I love to do. More recently is, I've actually, Ann touched on it, but Talking Rocks is my first children's book. So Talking Rocks is a nonfiction book about like the background stories and the back of rocks and minerals. It has a main character is Pebble, the rock reporter, who goes all around the world finding out where rocks came from and all their origin stories. So that's kind of the basis of the book. And it all came about because I really loved, it's going to sound simple, but I really love drawing rocks.
I
And a
love that.
friend who worked at a publishing company said, like, hey, we want to make a book about rocks and their backstories, and we know that you love drawing rocks. Would you love to make a pitch for this? And so the whole thing came about me just drawing a couple spreads and a cover of this pitch for Talking Rocks. And then that was sent around to all the different publishers, and finally it got picked up, and then we did the whole book. And it's been here's one of the spreads. Yeah, and I learned a lot from, I mean, I basically, this is nonfiction, so I had
Yeah.
to figure out how to really draw these things, make them realistic enough. Although, caveat, most rocks don't have googly eyes, so we did take a little bit of creative license there. But it was really a story of finding out like what do rocks really look like, what do gems really look like, how are they created, where can you find them all. So this is one of my favorite spreads. It's all about amethysts, which grow inside of geodes, and they can come about from many different ways, but it's usually lava and bubbles in lava. And like this was the spread all about amethyst. And the other big thing that I discovered when I was doing this book is like rocks are really, really, really old, like older than dinosaurs old. So that was like another sort of fascinating thing that we found out through the book. But the another interesting thing about this, and this is the spread from about pyrite and gold and fool's gold. Pyrite is
Cool
fool's gold,
school.
by the way. So this spread took place in Northern California, in kind of gold country where there was like a lot of prospecting for gold. But what I wanted to show you here, I did the entire book from the earliest sketches, which you can see on the left, to the final art. It was all done in fresco. And one part of the process is like, initially sketches look pretty rough and pretty messy. And this isn't the roughest sketch. This actually started getting pretty close to the final. But it all started with a lot of doodling, a lot of sketching, figuring out how the layout should work, figuring out how everything should fit together. And then after the publisher would see it, or my editors would see it, and they would say, okay, that's the right layout. Things are looking pretty good. Then we would go to these final illustrations, which you can see on the right.
I love it. And when you talk about just loving drawing rocks or the inspiration from nature, this is called a fact-packed guide to geology. And I was obsessed because I learned so much. I didn't know how geodes were made and the amethysts
Yeah.
that grow in the crystals. But like the learning that's packed into this book is fascinating. But I'm like, the whimsical nature of your illustrations are so fun. The faces, like that volcano on the last page that you had, the fool's gold with the little mask over his pyrite eyes, but your pebble reporter, like it's like an imaginary world of learning and friends through the way that you illustrated them. But look at that volcano and the eyes.
Oh,
Like
sorry.
the way that those pop out are so cool. There's a comment from our friend Alexio who's on the call. The rock textures are so cool. Hey, Sherry Masters and Young Palace, we see you over in Pennsylvania and Washington. More folks as they're tuning in. But Matt, like the inspiration and your process into it. I know we're going to go deeper into that, but I think on the next few pages you have a little bit more to share. And I'm fascinated already because when you said doodling and showing your editors or the publishers, to me, my teacher brain goes into the iteration process,
Yeah.
writing, drawing, doodling, how many times we do things over and over to continue to improve them. So it's awesome to see like that next page, some of your sketches that you have, and maybe share a little bit again about how do you even get started? Where do the ideas come from for you?
Well, the way that the ideas came, first there was a script. So, or, I mean, there was a text that I was working off of from the initial pitch. And so the way that, like, and this is, by the way, everyone, this is my first children's book. So this was a big learning for me around how publishing works, how the process works. And I was part of a team. So there was a writer who wrote the whole manuscript. I'm the illustrator doing all the illustration. There's a designer who's bringing everything together and laying out the text and creating all the final designs. And then there's editors who are looking at all the text, making sure that it's scientifically correct, making sure that the flow is good. But the way that the whole process went was like starting with really rough illustrations where we would just block out the major chunks of the layout, and then we would see like, do we have too much text, too little text? They started like aligning. We would start kind of laying out really rough versions of the book, and in publishing, in children's book publishing, they have like first page, it's called first pages, second pages, third pages, and then final. It basically is this iterative process where the book starts getting more and more refined. And at first pages, everything is completely rough. But by final, everything, that sort of final version, everything is very tight. Everything's dropped into place. And then I would get working on the final illustrations and hand all of those off for the designer to bring them in. So it was a very iterative process from the very beginning.
That's cool. I love that. And I'm curious as we get deeper into this, like what excites you most about digital drawing today? We're drawing and you're demoing some things with Fresco, and I'm so excited to learn more about Fresco, but also folks who are doodling, with traditional media today. What excites you most about this style of art today?
So I'll tell you, for me, drawing on the iPad really opened up art for me. And I think my career as an illustrator, which is sort of like my night job, but my practice as an illustrator got much easier when I started drawing on the iPad because I could take it with me wherever I went.
Oh, cool.
But the other big thing about digital drawing that I love is a couple things. One, I love being able to undo something. So it takes away my fear of failure. And I'll be totally clear, the reason why I didn't get started as an illustrator much earlier on, because I was kind of a little scared.
Hmm.
And drawing digitally means I don't have to worry about it. I can always undo things. The other thing you can see here, if you look in the side panel, drawing in Fresco, it's kind of like Photoshop. There's layers. And so the nice thing about this is I can build up an illustration with many different layers on top of it. And one thing I often do is I'll bring in an image, or I might bring in a sketch that I do in pencil on a sketch pad. I still draw on paper quite a bit, but I'll do my sketches on paper, and then I'll bring them into Fresco and I'll trace on top of them. So I love tracing actually. I love kind of
That's
getting my
cool.
rough ideas out in one other place, but then beginning to build on them in a program like Fresco. And as you can see here, I used to just be more focused on drawing, but as I progress, I think I've gotten a little bit more into just the love of painting, the
Hmm.
love of digital painting, of playing with color, of playing with forms. And if you take a look at my style here, I usually draw big shapes or geometric shapes, and then I paint on top of them, which is like the style that you're seeing in sort of the amethyst image right here. And what that looks like is, let's see, boom. To give a peek at my process, what it usually looks like is I'll draw a big shape. So there's the shape of that amethyst there. And then I'll go in and I'll pick a brush. So this is Fresco, by the way, everyone. But I will go and
And
pick.
Matt, we have a question too. I
Oh,
think this is
yeah.
good for folks who are learning. Fresco, I think, is for iOS, iPad, iPhone only, correct? Is it web-based or app-based?
Fresco is an iPad app. And it also has an iPhone app, but today I'm using the iPad app. And
Awesome.
one other thing, everyone online, Fresco is completely free. If you have an iPad, you can get Fresco. You can play with it today. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to sign in. It's totally free. And everything within it, it's all the brushes, it's all the colors, it's all the features that I'm showing, they're all totally free, which is another nice thing about Fresco. So feel free to get it today, play with it today. We're going to be doing most of the drawing today on just plain old paper and pen. But anytime you want to, like, Fresco is a really fun thing to play with. I was going to show you really quick, like what it looks like when I paint in here
Yeah.
is I basically see that big gray shape. That's the shape of the amethyst. And then I will just go and I'm picking colors and basically I go on top of it and I just start, let's see, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. So here's the thing where I'm actually changing my brush size. I'm going to make it really big. Okay. And then one thing I love doing in Fresco is just painting over shapes.
Oh, I love
And I would say most of my process is just, so here I have a slightly darker color, and you can see as I start to paint, it begins to feel a little bit more like a gem. And I'll go a darker color, and I'm just, a lot of the Talking Rocks book is just basically going in and taking a simple shape and beginning to paint over it. And I just have a big brush that looks kind of like a nice chalky brush, and it starts, creating that shape. So like, 90% of Talking Rocks is drawing over shapes and then putting googly eyes on stuff.
But that's so cool to see it broken down in the process and how layering those colors adds the texture, the dimension. You see it adds elements of shading. And oh, yeah. I love this because it's like peeking at your creative genius and your process.
And the only thing I would say is like, I just practice a lot along the way. So before I got that first children's book, I just really would play and kind of color in things and start developing my style. So if you're an artist out there, or if you want to get into illustration or animation, the most important thing is just play, just draw. Don't put pressure on yourself, but just like try and have a really fun time drawing.
I love that. Thank you, Matt. It's really cool to just kind of lay some foundation and get to know you a little bit as we get ready to jump in. And I mentioned Fresco is new to me, and it might be new to some of the folks tuning in. You mentioned it's completely free, and it's a great way for folks to do some digital art. You're guiding us into a doodling draw along together today. So share a little bit more about Fresco or how folks can use this. I know you have things ready to share on the screen, but when you talked about playing to learn, you're speaking to my heart because I said that as a first grade teacher. I said it as a K-8 innovation coach in my district, and I say it in my work supporting community. Push all the buttons and play to learn because that
Absolutely.
engages us and our brain, and we're using both sides of our creative and our analytical brain. And I'm ready. I have paper, I have marker, I have Fresco open on my iPad, but I'm like your front row learner right now.
Okay, I'm going to show you I'm going to show you just like a couple things that are really special about Fresco, and then I think we're going to just jump over and do some doodling because I want to spend a big chunk of time today doodling some fun autumn stuff. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Before we get to that, I just want to show you a little bit. I think one of the most delightful things about Fresco is it has tons of different brushes. So it has brushes that feel like watercolor. It has brushes that feel like chalk. It has brushes that feel like pencil or pens. These are some of my favorite brushes right here. These are the ones that I use all the time and that I use to draw and paint out Talking Rocks. So usually what I would do is, like I showed you a little bit, I would draw a shape and then I would go over it with these really wonderful textures. And we're going to spend most of today just kind of like drawing stuff that you can draw on paper, but I am going to show you just a little bit of what you can do within some of these brushes. And brushes, like I said, they're my favorite thing about Fresco.
Those have some fun names for the brushes too.
They do have a lot of fun names because we have like thousands of brushes and we have to give each one of them kind of a unique name. But like um, at a glimpse, like the types of brushes that live in Fresco, we have pixel brushes that once again feel like paint or chalk or all these different things. And they are like, if you zoom in on it, you can see like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
pixels. Okay. Then we have what's called live brushes, and these live brushes, I'm going to show you those in a moment because they're really fun. Live brushes are like watercolor or oil paint, and they act and react like watercolor and oil paint. And the last type of brush we have is vector brushes that are more like the brushes that are, it's more like Adobe Illustrator. So it'll create
Okay.
things that are nice, clean vectors. And I'm going to show you, today I'm just going to show you the pixel ones and the watercolor ones really quick, but let's just take a peek. So pixel brushes, like I said, they come in all these different patterns. So the nice thing about Fresco that makes it like that I love playing with. I love once again drawing on paper and painting analog, but there's a lot of stuff in here that begins to feel like analog materials, like paint, like different
Mm,
patterns.
yeah.
And so here, like what I'll do, and I love like, if you first get Fresco, the best thing to do is get in there and start playing with brushes and see the types of textures that different brushes do. This is another one I use quite a bit in Talking Rocks. It has this sort of like rocky, pebbly texture. Let's go look at another brush. Like there's another one I use that has, oh, a little big. I'm going to change the brush size, make it a little smaller here. There's a brush called Moppy, and it has like this feel like moppy sort of spread paint. I'll use
Oh,
that to do big watercolor backgrounds.
yeah.
And let me show you one more. But there's also some like really fun brushes. Let me show you. There's also some fun brushes, like if you ever needed to draw with Cheese Whiz, we have a Cheese Whiz brush.
I know that one, Matt. That brush is also inside Adobe Express for education. I use that one with my niece to make a lot of cheesy pictures, pun
Yeah,
intended.
pun intended. So like there's all sorts of fun brushes. There's brushes that let you do kind of cool leaves. There's all different types of special effects brushes, and it's just really an endless variety of different brushes that you can play with. I'm
So
gonna
we
show
have a
you,
comment from our friends
yeah,
over in Lexington One, their DLC channels watching right now, and they're saying how cool it is to see the textures appear, the shadows. I know this is when you were showing that amethyst, but literally like how you brush over different layers and start to create that texture, but also the texture that comes alive in all of these brushes. There are so many from a starting point, like the cheese or the leaves or all those other custom
yeah.
brushes. That's so cool.
Yeah, so it's really, I mean, I think the other thing, like a nice meditation, is to just get Fresco and try out all the brushes. So
Yeah.
like I have tons and tons of screens where I'm just like playing with brushes. It's like meditation. It's really fun. And then you find the ones that are your favorite.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you really quick what the live brushes look like. They basically, oops, 1 second.
That's a great point too, as you switch over those brushes, just the meditation or mindfulness moment and that play-based, like, hey, I want to see what the possibilities that exist inside of Fresco are. And again, it's pushing buttons and playing to learn, but the calm or the still or the exploration that helps you go to the next level of creativity.
That's right. And if you really want to have like that meditative vibe, just play with the watercolor brushes because the
Yeah.
really fun thing about watercolor brushes is they act like real watercolor.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
So they play and they mix, and the more like you mix the colors together, and it starts really interacting like real watercolor does,
Oh,
which is just
wow.
like, and then you can use that as something and draw on top of it later, but that's like a really nice effect. So that's really like watercolor. And the other super fun one is, I'll just show you this really quick, and then I think maybe we'll go over and do some doodling after this. But
Okay.
I just want to show you oil. So I'm going to go for some more kind of natural tones here, but like if watercolor acts like watercolor, oil, guess what it acts like? It acts like oil
Huh.
paint.
Yep.
So as I start to, it really allows you to kind of smear and bring colors together and mix them right on the canvas, just like as if it was real oil paint.
Oh my gosh. I love seeing how that that's happening. I'm also fascinated by the one above it because as the yellow and blue mixed and it like evolved into green naturally, just as
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
And one thing
Oh,
I
look
often
at
do
that.
is I'll actually like if any of you are mix your paints on a palette in real life and then sort of mix and smear them together. The other thing you can do here is like, oh, I really like some of these colors. You can sample from the mix of colors there and then start painting something new with the color that you just
Oh,
sampled.
that's
So
cool.
I'll often just mix colors right on the canvas and do that way. And
Oh my
that's
gosh, that's so
how I
cool.
do a lot of paintings.
I love this. And again, Adobe Fresco, it's iOS app and completely free, folks. I want to personally encourage you, download it, try it out. I downloaded it last night, Matt, and this rainy weekend in Southern California, I am going to be trying every single brush that's inside of Fresco.
So Anne, would you like us to, does everyone feel like they might want to start doing a little bit of doodling along right now?
Yeah. And we have somebody who's joining in from Romania. So
Oh, fun.
hello. And Ashley, I see you in the chat. Y'all, I've got my paper. I have some my favorite black line marker. Matt's gonna guide us into some doodling time. So this is something, again, the creative expression that we all have, all skill levels, all abilities, all creative outputs. We want to share with you a draw along time. And Matt Carlson, of course, is our pro here, but Matt's going to be guiding us. And as we think about Matt, I know I look outside the changing seasons and we're deep into autumn and winter in the Northern Hemisphere. I have seen my friends already start to get snow, and we know winter is coming in the United States, but let's keep this fall vibe going. It's my favorite season. I've got my marker, I've got my stuff ready. Y'all in the chat, get your paper, get your pencil, grab a crayon or a pen. I'm ready to doodle.
Great. So we're just going to draw together. And one thing I've learned from like many professional artists out there, and like I'm still learning as an illustrator and growing as an illustrator, but like most artists who, whether they're doing children's books or comics or whether they're working in entertainment, most of them start with a warm up. So I always start with a warm up too. And the other thing is, you know, I think I tend to build drawings out of basic shapes. So I just thought together, let's just draw some shapes together and then we'll go from there. And I think let's start with something simple. So everyone grab your pen, grab your paper, and we're just going to start doodling together. And we're going to start with some circles. And you'll notice that they don't have to be smooth. They don't have to be perfect. My circles are a little bit rough, but let's just draw some circles together. But I am going to show you a little trick that you can do in Fresco if you want, once you get Fresco. Like I said, my lines are a little bit rough to start with, but there's a couple tricks in Fresco, and one of them is this. Everybody watch this. If you draw a circle and if you hold it, I wish this worked in real life, and you hold it, it turns into a perfect circle.
It snaps into a perfect circle, huh?
It snaps to a perfect circle. Not that perfect circles are important, but if you want to, once you're doing like a finished illustration, that can be kind of nice. Okay, great circles. But let's go back to our normal circles that can be like a little bit rough. Okay, that's some good circles. Time to do some boxes. Let's do some boxes and squares.
I'm already feeling relaxed, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I do this is like, you know, and by the way, I recommend to everyone just doodle all the time. Do boxes, do squares, do circles. Fill up the margins of your math homework. You know, doodle whenever you can. It's very relaxing, and also every line you draw makes you better, makes your hand and your brain work more effectively together. So that's some boxes. Let's do some triangles, which are also good for so many shapes, but if you do circles, squares, and triangles, there's nothing you can't draw. So just draw a couple triangles.
So Matt, as you're drawing some, I'll share, when I was a coach in my district here in Southern California, you know, sketchnoting became a very big thing. And we talked about how lines, circles, squares, triangles, and doodle, like, or a squiggly line, became the inspiration for anything. And I would talk with educators and students all the time about, I see things in pictures in my mind, and I love to break them down into the smaller shapes. So doing these shapes right now, when you combine them, I mean, everything becomes a new possibility, right?
That's exactly right. And as we get to drawing some more shapes today, like we're going to be using these basic things that we're drawing right now. So here I'm just drawing blobs. Just draw some blobs, irregular shapes, and once again, every line you draw makes that connection between your brain and your hand more and more effective. All right, now my favorite, let's draw some clouds.
What's your trick to drawing clouds? I always feel like I don't have enough bubbles or too many bubbles.
I don't think you can ever have too little or too many. Okay. The trick to drawing clouds is don't worry about it and just draw your clouds. So you can do clouds this way with that straight edge across the bottom and make it sort of floaty clouds like that. That's about the number of curves I put in my cloud. And everyone's lines should be messy. Like, don't worry and don't try and make things too smooth. Just draw freely. And now let's just do some lines. Do some horizontal lines. Do some vertical lines. Let's do some jagged lines. Some sharp lines like that. Now let's do some bubble lines. Just some bumps, simple curves. Once again, all these things will play out in some of the drawings we're going to do next. And lastly, let's just do like flip that around, and now suddenly those bumps become waves. Okay, we're going to do just a little bit more warm up, and then we're going to get going. This, yeah, nice. You filled the page. By the way, everyone, fill that page. Draw big, draw messy, fill that page up. We're going to do a couple more warm-ups, and then we're going to get into the main drawing. Let's draw a spiral. And here, draw a little bit more slowly, okay? And just see how smoothly you can draw that spiral. Let it go in and in and in. This is also just kind of a fun decorative pattern, but also a great way to kind of like meditate and draw. I'm going to draw one more because it's just so fun. Draw one more spiral. And really see if you can kind of keep those lines even. This is a little bit more mindful, but here we're just seeing like, how tight can we pack it in? And spirals are just like such a nice pattern. Next, we're going to draw a star, kind of a star shape with some intersecting lines. One line, work on the next, work on the next. And of course it gets trickier when now we have a center. Try and make those lines go through the middle. Is everyone starting to feel a little bit of that drawing meditation going on right now? I hope so.
I'm feeling it too. And Matt, we have a question in the chat from
Yeah.
Chevy Vaughn. Do you like using a paper texture on the iPad or like when you're drawing on the screen? Do you have a favorite or a preference?
I do like, like as you can see, most of the pencils and pens have a little bit of a rough feel to them. So I draw with things that have, I do have kind of a paper-like thing on top of my iPad that makes it feel a little bit more paper-like, but I tend to like pencils and textures that feel like a real pencil on scratchy paper, and you can see that in one of the ones I'm drawing on. And this is the specific brush that I drew the whole children's book in. So it has a little bit of a rough effect to it. So there's some intersecting lines. Now let's just draw some kind of like, this is kind of like pickup sticks. Just draw some lines, no particular order. Keep them a little bit straight, but interacting. And
I
now we're
played
gonna
that enough when I was a little kid that I totally know what my pickup sticks pile looks like.
go. Now let's draw some circles, but like we're gonna make these circles overlap. It's almost like we're gonna build a little chain out of them. So I'm drawing fairly regular circles. I'm being a little bit mindful because I know that I want to go back and connect them in the end. Oop. Okay if you make mistakes. In fact, you should make mistakes. Make as many mistakes as possible. And now I'm going to do more of a free form. Just a loopy line that's kind of zooming around. And eventually it's going to go back and connect, and we'll see when it happens. But that's a fun type of doodle to do. And now let's just do some scribbles. So I'm going to do just like a nice kind of loose scribble. And one more kind of like a more swoopy scribble. Is everyone feeling warm? Like your hands feeling good?
This is a really good warm up. It's also a good control with the the practice and the control or like the looseness of the doodle, you know?
Yeah, and that's why most professional artists do these warm-ups to just put something on the paper, put a mark on the paper, get past that empty page, and just start playing with drawing. And now we're just going to do a loose scribble one way, making it pretty dense, pretty black. And the nice thing about iPads and Apple Pencils is they have pressure, just like a real pencil would have pressure. And now I'm gonna go across it in a different direction to make it even more dense, more black, and shade it in. But it has that sort of nice drawn feel to it. Okay, I think that's enough warm up. I think we're gonna get on to some of our big doodles if that's okay.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm feeling ready.
So the first thing I wanted to draw with all of you, I want all of you to leave today's session feeling like I can draw an owl. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw an owl. I'm going to pick a slightly different pencil for this because I want to show you something special that we can do after that. And the first thing we're going to do is draw a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. But draw a big circle. After you draw that circle, we're going to draw a diagonal line. Starting from the circle and going down, that seems like a good amount. The next line is going to be a curved line. I'm going to start at the end of that diagonal line, and the goal is I'm going to bring it back to the circle. So it's going to be a big curving line. It goes and matches back to the circle. That's the body of our owl. I'm going to draw two smaller circles on the face of the owl. One circle, another, and I'm going to connect these with two diagonal lines making a beak. Ta-da! Okay, now I'm going to draw one more curving line on the body that's going to split that body kind of in two, like this. Okay? And let's see, what else are we missing here? I think I'm going to go back into the eyes, draw a smaller circle, another small circle. And now this top part of the owl's body, that's going to be the wing. I'm going to draw some more curving lines that are parallel to that first line. That's the shape of the wing. And for the chest of the owl, I'm going to draw some little of those swoopy wave-like lines to be like the feathers on the chest. Our owl looks a little bit serious, but that's okay. And to lighten him up a little bit, let's give our owl some raised eyebrows, a little less serious. And the feet are going to be totally simple. I'm just going to draw a line down, another line down, and then where those lines hit the ground, I'm going to draw a diagonal line going like that, and another, and then sprouting off of that middle point, the owl's other talons. So there's a pretty simple owl. I hope everyone enjoyed drawing that. I'm going to show you. Yeah, nice. See, everyone, you can draw an owl.
I love how you broke it down, even with like, I'm drawing a slightly curved line. I'm drawing a straight, I mean, the straight lines, the swoops, everything we just practiced, we just put into play, you know?
Yeah. And so then another fun thing that we can do in Fresco is there's a little button down here. I'm hovering over it. It looks like a squiggle. It's in the lower left-hand corner. It looks like a squiggle, and it has a going through a circle. And if I tap that, then I can do this paint inside, and I'll show you what paint inside is. Paint inside let's pick a nice color, pick my favorite brush. Paint inside lets you suddenly turn Fresco into a coloring page.
Oh, cool.
So now I can go inside the lines that I just painted, and I can paint inside them as if it was, I need something a little darker there, as if it was a coloring book. Paint this owl's face like maybe something kind of a nice creamy color for the face. Looks a little bit human. Let's see, I think I wanted something a little bit more owl-like. Okay. Nice yellow, and then I think I'll give, but I did like that pink color, so I'm gonna really quickly, I can go and I can paint inside and quickly color in. Of course, you can do this on paper too, but it's pretty fun to just go ahead and like paint inside on Fresco. And there's that. Oops. So the way this works, if you draw anywhere inside an open space, it just paints inside. So I'll finish that owl's eyes. And that's kind of a fun thing you can do really quick.
That's awesome.
So there's our owl, and I think that's a really quick, easy way you can draw an owl. Let's get on to doing some other fun autumn stuff. I thought it would be fun to just draw some trees. And we're going to go through some really easy ways to draw trees. But you'll notice one thing here is that these are, once again, using just those basic shapes that we talked about at the beginning. Here's what it looks like to pick colors in Fresco. This is the color wheel. It's kind of similar to the coloring in Photoshop, but you can pick any colors you want and adjust all their different levels as you go. That's pretty fun. But let's draw some trees. First tree, once again, you're going to see all these basic shapes that we played with before. Just draw a circle. And then draw a line at the top of the circle down, going through the bottom of the circle. And now that doesn't look like anything quite yet, but begin some branching. Before you know it, it starts feeling like a tree. And I love drawing these really simple trees and then coloring and painting inside them. So that's a great, simple way to draw a tree.
Matt, you're
Draw the,
inspiring me. Even after, my childhood, my youth, into my adulthood, I sometimes am like, oh, the branches. This is just brilliant to break it down into much simpler steps. It's building my own creative confidence, even as an adult.
yeah.
But thank you for reminding us that we all can create in our own unique way. And when you see it in these smaller steps, it's way less intimidating.
Yeah, and I learned to draw by this set of books that everyone can go Google it. It's called Ed Emberley. And I hope that some of you have heard of that before, but Ed Emberley like did a great job of breaking down complex things into simple shapes. And that is like really baked into my drawing philosophy, starting with easy shapes and then doing more sort of fun stuff on top of them. Let's draw a couple more trees. Here's a tree that based off a triangle. And once again, there's many different ways you can do this, but you can, this one I'm using, once again, those wavy shapes within it, and automatically, boom, I have a pine tree. Or you can do trees, most trees are actually way more organic shaped. You can do any type of organic shape you want. Draw a big blob, create that main trunk coming through it, and then draw some fun branches. Just going in any direction. They don't have to go all the way to the end. They can just go, most of the times when we see branches on full trees, they get hidden like this and they just sort of fade off or become partial. And just to finish out our shapes, you can also start with a cloud, just drawing a really fun, loose cloud shape, and then add a trunk, add some branches,
Oh, yeah.
and that becomes a tree as well. And I can do some little cartoon leaf shapes inside it. There's so many different ways to draw trees, and it's nice to practice some that feel really simple and geometric, some that feel a little bit more real. And, of course, go and draw from real life. But even when you're drawing from real life, sometimes it's nice to be able to just simplify things down. Right. I'm also totally obsessed with mushrooms. And once again, you're looking at some basic shapes here, but I thought it'd be fun to draw a couple mushrooms together. And let's start with one that is just like a really simple one, half circle. And so I just draw a half circle, create that sort of trunk of the mushroom based off that. And then I'm going to use some wavy shapes. Some mushrooms have kind of like these sort of different patterns like that on top. There's so many different styles of mushrooms, and wherever you are, there's probably some mushrooms out in the wild near you. Go take a
Yeah.
look, find the mushrooms. But one thing I do quite a bit, that's just I take pictures. I love taking
Okay.
pictures of grass, weeds, mushrooms, everything that I see, like when I'm walking my dog. I take pictures, I bring them back, and then I bring it to my iPad and I import them into drawings and I draw on top of them.
I mean, that's a reminder inspiration can be anywhere, right?
Anywhere,
What's your
especially all
dog's
around
name?
you. Huh? We have
What's your
two
dog?
dogs. One dog. We have a lab mix called Stella and a terrier dachshund terror called Pablo.
Oh, cute. We have a really cool reminder. Roger saying in the chat, talking about how cool this is. Thanks for breaking down how simple the drawings are. And a reminder, even like Pixar characters are made out of basic shapes. So you see
Yeah,
this as a strategy used in so many different ways. So it's awesome to be able to watch your process, and this is how mine's coming along. So I've got my trees
awesome.
surrounding and my mushrooms. Oops, I think I went too close for a moment. There we go.
But absolutely, and that's such a good point. And when you look at especially Pixar illustrators or think of your favorite animated movie,
Yeah.
animators do what's called a shape language. They really like for their characters to have a distinct shape, and it'll have that shape through the whole movie. So it creates like a real visual recognition when, Buzz Lightyear or any character from Toy Story comes on the screen. They have specific shapes that they maintain them, or Inside Out's another one where all the characters have really distinct shapes that
Yeah.
they keep throughout the whole film. And that's definitely the way that a lot of animators think. So here's a more of an upside down mushroom where the cap is upended, becomes a little bit more of a cup on top. Sometime I'm going to draw a couple spots in there. And then these frilly sort of the fins forget the exact name of it, but I should know that because I'll be doing a book about that soon too. But those gills, they're called gills. That from the bottom, draw one more that's a little bit more of a morel shape. Once again, going to that blobby shape, doing a line down the middle, looks a little bit like a guitar, and then creating some fun wavy lines to create texture. But I'll tell you another really important part of my process is I love drawing feet on things and making them run.
Oh,
So why not have a mushroom that can run around? And half of my work, don't tell anyone where I work, but if you snuck a look at my notebooks in most meetings, I'm usually drawing goofy shapes and then adding feet to them and making them run around.
that's awesome.
That and then a couple eyes and a smile. And then I love making inanimate things have a little bit of a character to it. So doodle those googly eyes on everything, everyone. Suddenly our mushrooms feel like friends.
Okay, that's awesome. I gotta do my bottom one. It's how crazy, like the little smile changes its whole personality.
Yeah, I mean that's and so that's another sort of fun thing I do all the time too. Let's just draw I'm gonna keep the autumn theme and just draw a couple of leaves and then I'm gonna show you something really fun, okay?
Okay, cool.
All right. So basic leaf is just actually just start with kind of this almond shape where it's symmetrical. Oh, by the way, can I show you one other thing that's in
Yeah.
Fresco? All right. Over here, we have a setting called symmetry. And the really cool thing about symmetry, and by the way, if you use Express Draw on desktop too, that has symmetry as well. And what symmetry does is it lets you create many different types of symmetry, create a symmetrical drawing, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. So it creates a drawing where whatever I draw on one side is going to be mirrored on the other side. And so this is just like a basic sort of reflective symmetry, but what it looks like is this. Let's go for a more kind of wild shaped leaf. So now whatever I draw on one side is mirrored. And let's draw a little stem. And then if I draw these the veins going out to different parts of the leaf. So this is a fun way to draw. And sometimes I'll draw symmetrical and then I'll turn off symmetry and kind of draw loose on my own to make it organic again. But this is a really fun way to draw things like butterflies, leaves, whatever you might want to draw. Symmetry is a nice sort of quick way to make these fun patterns. And of course, you could do the same thing. You paint on one side of a page, fold a page, and it'll give you that same great feel. But I really enjoy being able to paint with things like symmetry.
That's going to help me up my snowflake game this winter.
Yeah. And I'll show you one other little drawing trick is we have this thing called snap to shape. I think I showed you it before. See that line that I did? That's just I can actually draw a line if I hold it at the end of the stroke. It's called snap to line and it becomes a straight line. And so I'll use that right down the middle of the leaf.
Awesome.
So that's one quick way you can draw a leaf. But let's just draw or actually we draw mushrooms, we draw our leaves. I'm just going to draw a couple of leaves and then we'll move on to the next thing.
So I was going to say, Matt, maybe if you do one epic leaf, we're about 8 minutes, less than 8 minutes to wrap. And so I think that if you want to jump into some of the extra, because I think you're going to share some of those other pro kinds of tricks for folks to be aware of in Fresco next, right?
I do. And I actually, in the 8 minutes that we have left, I want to show you something that's pretty fun, and that's around animation, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So animation, here I drew and painted a leaf. I painted it right before this meeting, and I wanted to make a nice, colorful leaf. Get in Fresco, begin to paint, make shapes and paint over them. That's really fun. But I wanted to show you some stuff around animation. One thing that's really fun in Fresco is to animate the things that you paint and draw. So here I drew and painted this little leaf. It doesn't have any googly eyes on it, I'm sorry, but I'm going to show you some things you can do with it. In the lower right-hand corner, there's these 3 little circles with an arrow. That's for animation. I tap on that, and it brings up the animation options. And in the middle there's this thing called path. Tap path, and then what I can do is I can start drawing. Watch this. I want this leaf to be kind of falling. Can everyone see that path I'm drawing?
Yeah, I see it.
Oops. Sorry, wrong page. Um, okay, I want to animate the leaf. All right. Okay, so here we are. I'm drawing that little path. One moment. Okay. All right. Let's see, paint. Okay. And then now we're gonna, there's that leaf and it's floating along that path.
Oh,
So that's pretty cool. But what if I want more leaves? I can actually draw more paths.
oh, cool.
And then, but they're all looking a little bit plain. No leaves drop like that. That's a little bit too regular. There's all these different effects. Like I can make these leaves. Let me just zoom it out a little bit so you can see it. I can make them first. I can make them aligned to the path. And then, but if that's, you know what, that's still only 5 leaves. I want more. You can have a lot of leaves going in there. And I can make them do things like spin. I can do make a lot of them, a lot of these
Oh,
leaves
wow.
spinning. And then I can do things like randomize them. And the reason I want to share all this with you is like I did that in 30 seconds. So one really fun thing about Fresco is it can make it really easy to do these simple animations using motion paths and these simple presets to make stuff spin and sort of animate in really fun ways.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to show you one last thing. So that's one fun thing you can do. But I totally recommend that everyone, if there's an animator in any of these classes, jump in and play with animation in Fresco. It's really fun and easy. The last thing I want to show you is super special, and it is, I will close that out. It's called Pose. And so I created this, one second. Close out the animation tool, turn off that. Flags off. And okay, I made this little leafy twig boy. What Pose does, which is super fun, is it lets you take anything that you've drawn or painted and turn it into a puppet, as if you rigged it or created scaffolding or turned it into a live puppet. So Pose is this little button. You can probably see it. It looks like an S with a little arrow on it. If you tap Pose, then what you can do is you can go into your drawing and you can just tweak it a little bit.
Oh
You
my
can make
gosh.
things move. And this is really nice also with animation. So sometimes I'll create things where I animate them in Pose, and it lets you just kind of move your character around, move them a little bit so they could kind of jump up. And if you grab the whole character, you know, can do a little belly dance.
Oh my gosh.
You know, of course, things can get out of hand, but that's what's really fun about Pose.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think I'm going to end in just showing you a couple examples of some of these things.
Okay.
And then, of course, it can go back to exactly what it was. But Pose is a really fun thing to like draw a character and then animate it in all these fun ways.
Completely transform it.
Yeah. And so the last thing I want to,
Does everything need to be on the same layer for the pose feature to work? That's a
yes,
great question
it
from
only,
that.
right. It works on just flat
Okay.
images.
Okay.
But here's a couple
Oh,
of
wow.
examples of Pose in action. I know it's still, you know, Halloween just happened, so this is like a pose
Oh,
that
cool.
I just did to kind of show how. So I used Pose to flap the wings and move the feet and move the little pumpkin bat's ears. But that's one of the ways that you can use Pose.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. I cannot wait to play with that.
And here's our kind of intro image moving around. And this is going to like little preview of the next book I'm working on. It has to do with stars and planets. So this is like beginning to lean into that.
Ooh, I feel like that's a sneak peek into your next big project that we just got to see.
Yeah. Well,
So cool.
hopefully that gave an overview, just a little taste of some of the things you can do in Fresco. But and of course it can go as deep as you want it to go. But it's really fun to play with. So I hope everyone I hope everyone spends a lot of time doodling out there. Doodle every day, doodle all the time. But this is a little peek at Fresco.
Oh my gosh, Matt, I can't thank you enough. I love that Fresco. It's like pro painting, drawing made for everybody and free for all, from using those awesome brushes to paint and draw to animate. And now we know all about how to make our creations pose in Fresco too. So, So cool. Thank you, folks, for doodling along with us. And I know as we get ready to wrap up, we want to share with you some upcoming opportunities. On December 4th, there's a sneak peek to something that's brand new from Adobe called Project Aqua that my teammate Shell and our teammates Lydia will be talking about. Matt, you want to do like a 30-second pitch for what this is?
Yeah, I will. So here is a tiny glimpse, and you'll be seeing a lot more of it. But this is Project Aqua, and it is basically a creativity app that is like, that lets you do all sorts of things like drawing, painting, tracing. If you're interested in like, becoming a fashion designer or drawing comic book superheroes, I'm not going to steal their whole show, but it's basically like you can explore all these different things in the map, and each one of these islands is an activity.
I love
And Lydia and Shell will go deep on it, but you can dive in and really explore all sorts of creative things. And a lot of it feels a little bit like Fresco, but it goes way into like way more stuff beyond that. So
That's
I hope
so
everyone
cool.
has a chance to. You can also download that, get out that on your iPad. It also is free, but check it out.
Oh my gosh. Folks, it's been so fun to just celebrate from ideas to illustrations. And Matt, thanks for bringing the joy of creativity to life for all of us, not only for mindfulness moments and play-based learning, but how we can go from the whimsy and fun and taking our ideas into something, whether it's academic aligned to the school or the classes kids are taking, or just the seasons we're all living through right now. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. It was so great to be with all of you today, and I hope you had a really fun time drawing.
Oh my gosh, friends, and tune in next week. I'll be live with Claudio from the studio. We want to remind you there's a ton of ways to get connected at edu.adobe.com. This is a great resource and a great place for our global Adobe creative educator community to check out resources. We have upcoming programming here. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. Folks, we'll see you next time. Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.